Welcome to a heavily electrified 2019 Geneva Motor Show. And if you'd like to see more of videos like this, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you turn on notifications, you'll never miss a thing. This rotating gently behind me is the Ferrari F8 Tributo. It is the replacement for the 488 GTB, and it contains elements of Ferrari's last special edition mid-engine supercar, the Pista. But it doesn't have all of the hardcore bits of that car put in. What does it get? Well, it gets the Pista's engine, which is basically a challenge engine, but it is slightly heavier, it's got carpets back in it and that sort of thing, so it's a kind of halfway house between the 488 and the full-on Pista. It gets many of the Pista's aerodynamic elements, and the name F8 Tributo refers to its V8 engine with twin turbochargers, which has been named Engine of the Year loads of times, of the best engine of the past 2 decades, and so on and so forth. Now, this is the 3rd generation mid-engine Ferrari to continue with the same platform, and that's slightly unusual in Ferrari terms. They usually go 2 generations, then get a new architecture. It's unusual, though not unprecedented, for it to carry on 3 times, but we would expect this car to remain in production for a little while before Ferrari downsizes to a V6, adds hybridization, and then takes on whatever the McLaren 720S will be replaced by, plus Aston Martin's new Vanquish. This is Peugeot's new 208, its new Super Mini that is based on Peugeot's small platform that will also underpin the next generation Vauxhall Corsa and the DS3 Crossback. It goes on sale towards the end of this year, and 3 different distinct powertrains will be available. A series of petrols, a series of diesels, and also an EV at the same time. Peugeot and Citroen have a different policy where small cars will be EV only and larger cars will be plug-in electric hybrid, because it's expected they will cover more distances. It's got actually a very funky interior with a new take, the 208, on its iCockpit with a small 3D element, which I quite like actually. The whole range though goes on sale at the same time towards the end of this year. After an internal battle as to whether this car makes production, the Honda Urban EV concept moves a step closer to production reality in this form, the E-prototype. It will go on sale by the end of this year. It has gained a pair of rear doors in the process. The car is shorter than a Honda Jazz, about 10 centimetres taller than a Mini, and it is quite funky. It has a really funky interior, but Honda has not gone mad for the range. It says the electric range of this car will be approximately 125 miles. It also will probably not be particularly cheap. Honda says if you look at products like Apple, people are prepared to pay a premium because of the added value. So I think they think that this car will appeal because it is funky looking. This is the Bugatti Voiture Noire, and as we all know, that is French for very expensive body kit. It is a one-off based on the Chiron, commissioned and paid for by a customer, and it bears mentioning here because it has the title of the most expensive road car ever made, at £9.5 million before tax. In the UK, that would work out at £12 million VAT. Its appearance is inspired by the Type 57 Atlantic. The Pininfarina Batista is the most powerful production car, it's claimed, ever made in Italy. With an electric motor in each wheel, the hypercar has 1,900 horsepower and nearly 1,700 pounds-foot of torque, which is said to be good for a top speed of 217 miles an hour and a 0 to 60 time in less than 2 seconds. Now, much of the running gear is shared with the Rimac C2, but the 2 companies say that there are 40 to 50% differences between the 2, and so the 2 companies are frenemies. Although they share some things, they also compete with each other. Pininfarina is going to build 150 of these, with delivery starting next year. Following that, it is going to make 3 different SUVs. Our second sensible Super Mini of the Geneva show, then, alongside the Peugeot 208, is the new Renault Clio. It's Renault's 5th generation Clio, which they advertise as being evolutionary on the outside and revolutionary on the inside. This is the 2nd time that Renault's design director Laurens van den Akker has done a Clio. He arrived and the first car he did was the Clio, so he's now done the entire Renault range and is starting again. So the big news is not necessarily on the outside, where the car is a little bit shorter, a little bit lower, the body in white is a little bit lighter. The bigger story comes inside, where there is said to be much more functionality to the Clio's interior. There'll be a petrol, diesel and hybrid range. Come 2020, the Clio will become Renault's first hybrid. The same system, but with a bigger battery, will be Renault's first plug-in hybrid when that arrives in the capture later that year. The Clio goes on sale this autumn. This is the Alfa Romeo Tonale, if you're being uncharitable, and it is a concept of a compact SUV that will sit beneath the Stelvio in Alfa Romeo's range when it goes on sale in 2022. It'll use the same platform as the Jeep Renegade, which means it will be predominantly front-wheel drive, eek. But Alfa Romeo does say it will target being the best in its class to drive. At the moment, it's got a plug-in hybrid electric powertrain, but you can guarantee that by the time it goes on sale, it will have a range of engines, some of which will be among the sportiest in its class. The Polestar 2 is Polestar's second production car, as the name suggests, and priced between 35 and 50-ish thousand pounds. It'll be a direct competitor for the Tesla Model 3. It sits on Volvo's small CMA architecture, which also underpins the XC40 and is used by Lynk & Co. There is an electric motor front and rear, making 400 horsepower in total and making the car four-wheel drive. The target is about a 311-mile range, so it is really competitive with the Model 3 as well as Jaguar's I-Pace and so on. Sales will begin in 2020. You can order it online and it is built in China but available worldwide. In among all of the zero-emission vehicles then, a couple of old-fashioned supercars. Lamborghini has two. It has the Huracan Evo in Spyder format, and also you will remember the Aventador SVJ, set a very fast time around the Nürburgring, has very sticky tyres, has fancy aerodynamics. Well, that is now here in Roadster form as well. There will not be very many. They add around 50 kilograms to the weight, about 25-30 grand to the price, and as much air as you can cope with. Now, back in 2016, Lamborghini's founder, Ferruccio Lamborghini, would have celebrated his 100th birthday. Lamborghini, the company, introduced the Centenario at that time. Lamborghini, the family, did something slightly different and introduced the Centenario tractor, which we just haven't seen before, so I thought it was worth having a look at now. Despite the fact there are 6 what looks like exhaust pipes, this is a 3-cylinder because Lamborghini's early tractors were 3 cylinders. 3 of these are exhaust outlets and 3 of them are inlet valves. They made 5 available to Lamborghini collectors at the same price as a Huracan, 250,000 euros or thereabouts. And 2, if you're interested, are still available. Toyota already has an extensive range of SUVs and crossovers, but if you want your standard Corolla to look a little bit more roughy-tufty, then the Trek is the answer. The Corolla Trek will be available as a wagon only. It gets a 20mm ride height, it gets the obligatory scuff plates front, rear and down the side, and it will be on sale from August. This is the Koenigsegg YESCO, named after company founder Christian von Koenigsegg's father, who helped him out when he started in the car business. Now, this effectively replaces the Agera, and I'm going to give you some numbers for which, I'm sorry, I need a cheat sheet for that. It will make nearly 600 horsepower if it's running on ethanol, a little bit less if it's running on normal fuel, and it will make 1,106 pound-foot. There will be 2 versions, one of which will be track-focused, another one which will be tuned for top speed, and Koenigsegg is targeting 300 miles an hour. There is a 9-speed gearbox in which each gear gets its own wet clutch. The dry weight is 1,200 kilograms, wet it'll be about 1,400 kilograms. They are going to make 125 of them, more than 80 are already spoken for, at a cost of £2.29 million plus taxes each. Citroen's ME1 is an interesting and I think quite cute concept car that investigates the city car segment as it will go onwards into the future. Young buyers are not really quite so engaged at buying small cars as they used to, and as more cities bring in stringent emissions regulations, something has to be done. So Citroen is thinking that perhaps you could have an electric car like the ME1. In fact, they don't really like the phrase car at all, fitting some of Europe's quadricycle regulations, which means that the car has a maximum speed of 28 miles an hour, a maximum weight of 450 kilos, and a maximum width of 1.5 meters. In some European countries, it could even be driven without a driving license. The idea is that you could own an ME1, but actually just as likely is that you will hire one or rent one or share one, and that is why the interior is built with very sturdy materials, and it's a very simple car, very cheap to make and cheap to look after. When Audi's Q4etron goes on sale late in 2020, it will be Audi's 5th electric vehicle, and by 2025, Audi will have 12 of them. This SUV is slightly shorter, slightly lower than a Q5. It sits on Volkswagen Group's specific MEB electric architecture, and we think it will have a range of around 280 miles and about 302 horsepower. The interior, although it is a concept, does look like it could translate to a production cars quite easily. Now, I love this. This is Volkswagen's ID Buggy, but it's not the model itself which is really significant. It's what's underneath it. It's based on Volkswagen's MEB all-electric architecture, and there's a car called the ID Hatch, which will be the first production car based on that architecture later this year. But this car looks brilliant. It was reminiscent of the old Manx Meyer buggies from the 1960s, which were based on Volkswagen Beetles. And in a way, something similar is possible here. All of the body panels on this are self-supporting and removable, and Volkswagen says it is going to make its architecture available to other car manufacturers who could take the skateboard chassis that it's based on, put the motor front or rear where they like, and put on their own body panels. It is a really different approach to car making. This is the Lagonda all-terrain concept, and it will go into full-scale production in Aston Martin's St Athan factory in Wales in 2022. It bears some relation to the first Lagonda concept we saw last year, which was a saloon, but this one sits 200mm higher. But like the saloon, it makes the most of its full EV powertrain and has absolutely loads of space inside. Oodles is the official Aston Martin speak. And finally then, the Lagonda shares space on the Aston Martin stand with not one but two mid-engined Aston Martin concepts, the next Vanquish and the 003. Now, this stand is absolutely heaving, so what we've done is had a special exclusive early look at those in a studio. There will be a link to that video right from here. Meantime, thank you very much for joining us. If you like, subscribe, turn on notifications, you won't miss any of Autocar's videos. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.